Anywhere near that zone where development meets wildlands, the wildland urban interface, or WUI, well, you know the threat. Wildfires feel closer, bigger, scarier every year. And that feeling of helplessness, wondering if there's anything truly effective you can do. It's common, especially when just focusing on your own property doesn't seem like enough anymore. But there might be a different way, like a really powerful science backed approach that's about transforming how whole communities face this threat. Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. It's called the Hazard Mitigation Methodology, or HM. And this isn't just, another checklist for clearing brush. It's a pretty revolutionary community-wide strategy developed by NIST, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology working with CL Fire, and the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS. It's really about empowering communities.
That's a great way to put it. Our mission today is really to unpack this HMM. What is it? How does it actually work to let structures, maybe even your own home, genuinely stand alone against fire? And crucially, why working together as a community is absolutely essential. It's not just a nice to have. And importantly, this isn't just theoretical stuff. The HMM is built on, gosh, over a decade of real world fire observations, intense lab research. It's practical, it's proven.
Okay, let's get into that because we've all seen it, right? The news, the images, WI fires have just exploded over the last, 20 years?
Definitely. More intense, more frequent, causing devastating losses, billions in damage, communities completely upended.
And it feels like the old ways of fighting fire or preparing for it just aren't cutting it anymore, especially with these, what did you call them? Firestorms.
Yeah, firestorms or large scale fire events. Think about October 2017 in the North Bay or the lightning fires in California in August 2020, even Oregon in September 2020. You get dozens, sometimes hundreds of ignitions almost simultaneously. It completely overwhelms first responders. They simply can't be everywhere. That reality forces a new kind of thinking.
So, how does HMM represent that new thinking? What's the big shift?
The fundamental shift is moving beyond just your property line. Traditional mitigation often stops at the fence, but fire, well, fire doesn't care about property lines, right?
Right.
HMM looks at the entire community as one system. It analyzes how fire actually spreads between parcels, between homes, between structures. Think about a simple storage shed. Maybe it's in your backyard, feels contained. But if it's too close to your neighbor's house, or maybe you stacked firewood right up against their fence, suddenly that shed or that woodpile is a risk for both properties.
Regardless of whose deed it's on.
Exactly. It's about understanding the exposure, that shared risk, not just the boundary on a map. This applies whether you're retrofitting an existing neighborhood or planning a new one.
Okay, that's a huge mental shift. My property risk depends on my neighbor's property, and vice versa. So, given this shared risk, how does HMM actually tackle the threats? You mentioned two main ones.
That's right. Breaks it down into two distinct but very connected threats:
Hmm.
embers and direct flame exposure.
Let's start with embers. I think people maybe underestimate those.
Hugely underestimated. Embers are incredibly dangerous. They can travel for miles ahead of the main fire, miles,
Hmm.
and they can rain down, causing ignitions all over a community far from where the actual flames are. Even a moderate shower of embers can start multiple house fires.
Wow, miles.
Yeah. And because of that, HMM stresses full ember hardening. Every single vulnerability needs addressing.
Uh,
Why? Because embers are just unpredictable once they're airborne. You can't control where they land. And you absolutely cannot count on a fire truck being at your house to put out an ember ignition during a major event.
so, what does full ember hardening involve?
The HMM actually details 40 specific structural vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
40. We're talking roofs, obviously gutters, but also attic vents, foundation vents, crawl space openings, the gap under your eaves, windows, doors, even things like attached decks or fences made of combustible materials.
40 specific points. That's thorough.
It has to be. Because partial hardening, it offers almost no value when you're facing significant ember exposure. It's like patching only one hole in a sinking boat. The embers will find the weak spot, that unhardened vent, that crack under the door. And once ignition starts, the other hardening might not matter.
That's a really stark message. Doing it halfway is almost like doing nothing.
In high ember conditions, unfortunately, yes. That's what the science shows.
Okay, sobering. Now, what about the second threat? Direct flame exposure.
Right. This is when the fire itself or something burning nearby, like vegetation or another building, gets close enough to ignite your home through direct flames or intense radiant heat.
And HMM has a strategy for this too.
Yes. The developers, folks like Alexander Meringue Hines at NIST, emphasize what they call the three R's:
The three R's.
remove, reduce, and relocate.
Okay.
And these apply to the fuels on your parcel. Things like firewood piles, Those sheds we mentioned, wooden fences, even dense landscaping or dead plants right near the house.
So tell us about the three R's. Remove.
Remove is often the most effective and usually the most cost efficient option, especially on smaller, denser lots. Just get rid of the combustible stuff near the house, tear down that old wooden shed, replace the wood fence section near the house with metal or stucco, clear out flammable vegetation completely, eliminate the fuel source.
Makes sense. What's reduce?
Reduce means exactly that, lessen the amount of fuel. Maybe keep much less firewood stacked up, especially during fire season. Thin out dense shrubs. Prune lower tree branches to remove ladder fuels that let fire climb up.
Okay, and relocate.
Relocate means moving those fuels further away from your structures.
Hmm.
This works well on larger properties where you have space.
Hmm.
Move the wood pile way out back. Relocate the shed further from the house. But, and this is a big but, for smaller lots, you have to be careful.
How so?
On small, high density lots, just pushing your firewood to the very edge of your property line might put it right next to your neighbor's house, or their shed, or their fence.
Ah, creating a new problem.
Exactly. It can lead to what's called fuel agglomeration, basically, a big pileup of flammable stuff right between properties. If that ignites, it creates a really intense fire pathway affecting everyone nearby. You have to think across those property lines when relocating.
This all points back to that community view again. So remove, reduce, relocate first. What about actually making the house itself more resistant to flames? Hardening it.
That's a really interesting point of the HMM. Hardening the structure itself against direct flame is actually considered the last resort.
Last resort. That seems counterintuitive. Isn't that what most people think of first? Fireproof siding, special windows.
It is what many think of first, yeah. But HMM prioritizes dealing with the fuel first, because hardening is typically the most expensive option. And crucially, its effectiveness against direct flame depends almost entirely on something called the structure separation distance, or SSD.
SSD. Okay, what's that?
That's the physical distance between your house and whatever significant fire source might threaten it. Dense woods, another building, a big fuel pile, like that agglomeration we talked about.
And how does that distance affect whether hardening works?
HMM lays out three basic scenarios based on SSD. Scenario one, if your SSD is pretty good, say greater than 50 feet,
Okay.
then direct flames from something else burning that far away usually won't have enough energy to ignite your house directly. So in that case, you don't really need to focus on hardening for flames. Your main worry is still embers and managing fuels on your own property.
Got it. 50 feet or more, focus on embers and your own yard fuels. What's next?
Scenario two. This is the SSD range between about 25 and 50 feet. This is kind of the sweet spot where structural hardening can make a big difference. Here, the heat and flames from a neighboring fire source are close enough to be a threat, but not so overwhelming that good hardening measures can't resist them. Fire resistant siding, multi pane tempered glass windows, non combustible decking. This is where those investments really pay off.
Between 25 and 50 feet, hardening helps significantly. What about closer than that?
That's scenario three. SSD less than 25 feet. This is the toughest situation.
Oh, I can imagine.
When a fire source is that close, the direct flame contact and the sheer radiant heat are often just too intense. Even highly fire resistant materials can fail under that kind of prolonged direct assault. So, hardening your own structure in this scenario often has limited or even no real effect on preventing ignition.
Wow. So if your neighbor's house is only, say, 15 feet away and it catches fire, hardening your wall might not save your house?
In many cases, no. The focus has to shift completely.
Shift to what?
It shifts to preventing the ignition of the source. You have to focus on that neighboring house or that nearby shed or that fuel pile itself. Can it be hardened? Can the fuels around it be removed, reduced, or relocated? That becomes the priority.
Which brings us right back to
The community.
right.
It absolutely underscores why community wide efforts are not just helpful, but essential, especially in denser areas. Your safety depends on your neighbor's actions and theirs on yours.
That really drives home the core message of HMM, doesn't it? It's not just about your castle, it's about the whole village.
Precisely. The HMM report explicitly states community participation is necessary, not optional. Necessary. Because fire ignores those property lines. A single home that hasn't addressed its vulnerabilities, especially ember vulnerabilities, or one that has hazardous fuels too close, it can become the ignition point that jeopardizes the whole block, the whole neighborhood.
You mentioned fences earlier.
Yeah, think about a standard wooden fence running between properties. It acts like a wick, a fuse, potentially carrying fire directly from one house to the next. Or that fuel agglomeration Maybe several neighbors pile firewood or yard waste near their shared fences, unknowingly creating a massive fuel load right there. One spark.
And it becomes everyone's problem instantly.
Exactly. The HMM gives us the science to see these shared risks, but acting on it requires collective effort.
This reminds me of a concept I read about inspired by old ranching communities. They call it neighboring.
Neighboring. Tell me more.
It's this idea of informal mutual aid. You help your neighbor because you know you might need their help tomorrow. It's about shared responsibility and accountability, not because of a law, but because survival depends on it. It's something that, as the saying goes, cannot be legislated or funded. It has to come from the community itself.
That captures the spirit perfectly. And it connects directly to the ultimate challenge of implementing HMM. HMM gives us the scientific what the risks are, how fire spreads between properties, what vulnerabilities matter most. The next vital question is the how. How will we as a community choose to collectively address the work and, yes, the costs to mitigate these shared risks?
So, pooling resources, maybe? Neighborhood work days?
Could be coordinating fuel removal across property lines, ensuring everyone addresses those critical ember vulnerabilities, not just a few houses here and there, because that weak link matters. We see this spirit already in groups like Fire Safe Councils. They're doing amazing grassroots work fostering exactly this kind of collaboration.
And HMM provides the scientific backbone for those efforts.
Precisely. A robust framework to guide that collective action.
This is incredibly valuable information. And the good news is people can access this directly, right? This isn't locked away somewhere.
Not at all. It's publicly available. We absolutely encourage everyone listening to check it out.
Where should they look?
Go to the NIST website. That's NIST.gov. Look for the Wildland Urban Interface Fire Group. The key document is NIST Technical Note 2205. It's free to download.
NIST Technical Note 2205. Got it.
And what you'll find there isn't just theory, it's practical, implementable guidance. Based on the latest science, based on hard lessons learned from real fires. Dig into it. You'll find the details on those 40 ember vulnerabilities diagrams, explanations for things like roof edges, vents, decks. You'll find tables with specific separation distances needed for different fuels, different structures, guidance on hardening actions based on those SSD scenarios we discussed.
The actual tools people need.
Yes. Huge credit goes to the researchers who developed this, Alexander Maranghides, Eric Lenk, Shanali Nazare, and their colleagues at NIST and collaborating organizations. Their work gives communities a clear path forward.
So, as we wrap up, maybe a final thought for everyone listening, especially if you live in or near the WI. If we accept that wildfire doesn't respect our neat little property lines, how do we need to start redefining what our property even means when we think about safety and resilience? How can you personally contribute to that collective effort in your neighborhood? Because it seems clearer than ever your home's survival might just depend on it.